simultaneous, right? There's 2 hours in that window, and they are now targeting the end of that window, 9:56 p.m. Eastern. And so there's at least that, but you could say, well, why isn't the window, I don't know, very early in the morning or very, very late in the night when the weather is probably a little bit better, right? I don't know. There's usually other things at play, right? Things like, for example, the operator. The operator might not be in the right position or the right location in time to be able to call home to the satellite. Because once the satellite is deployed and it starts talking back home, there needs to be folks down on the ground, right? That talk back to the satellite and things like that. The satellite also needs to be able to be in sunlight so that there's power positive and things like that. So there are different constraints that are probably not the ones that you see for, again, an example that signals launch to the ISS, but there are still restrictions, and so it's not like they can launch any other time of the day. They just have this 2 hour window, and they sort of have to go with it. But we'll see.
And at this point now, we are officially on frost watch as we wait to see if propellant load has begun, which that would have started at T-minus 35 minutes, but it does take a couple of minutes for us to be able to see the condensation outside the vehicle. Max, Alex, either of you seeing anything right now?
I almost want to say I do, but that could also just very well be the atmospheric distortion messing with our eyes, where that's, maybe? Or maybe that's just so the white line you were seeing there at the very bottom of the LOX tank is where SpaceX wiped away some of the soot to inspect one of the weld lines there. So that in combination with the current atmospheric distortion that we're seeing is kind of playing tricks. No, I see vapor there. I definitely see vapor. You guys see that?
At the top of that
Yep.
white line, yeah.
Okay. They are doing it. They're going for it.
Yep.
All right. So they are going to try for the count. So at this point, obviously they've been committed to this T0 beforehand because this is the final one of the window. But now they are officially committed with tanking underway. So in terms of what we have next in the countdown, right now they'll begin loading the RP1, the rocket propellant 1, and the liquid oxygen, the LOX, into stage 1. Meanwhile, stage 2 will just start with the RP1 load. That will continue until the infamous or famous or notorious, whatever, 20-minute, 20-second vent when they will begin the LOX chill down. And of course, the liquid oxygen load in stage 2 should begin at T-minus 16 minutes or so to go until launch. And there is that timeline that you see there. So we are officially ticking off things on the timeline now, and hopefully taking off towards a launch just over 30 minutes from now. A reminder, as we continue, if you have questions, you could tag us at NSF or at NASA Spaceflight, and we'll answer some questions as we go. But I do need to address the super chats that have been coming in for the last 90 minutes here. Patrick saying, I appreciate all the work you all do here. Thank you. Thank you as well. Ace with the sticker and with the $5 super chat. There was a sticker somewhere earlier as well. Amy saying, okay, let's goal, because someone, Kevin, created a goal without telling me. All of a sudden I go to eat and I come back and I look and there's a goal for me to do something cool. Apparently I said I would do something cool. And yeah, so then Amy coming in saying, yes, we want to see Sawyer do something cool. Crispy, oh, here we go. Darth becoming a Capcom member. Capcom gets access to the NSF Discord, in addition to all the awesome member perks right here on YouTube. Crispy, I'm excited to see what cool things we are in for. Crispy also saying, if only more super chats increase launch chances. Here's another one from Crispy saying, by the way, NSF is awesome, but you already knew that. Crispy saying, better be prepping, Sawyer, smiley face. Crispy says, hello, KMR. And guess who this next super chat is from? You want to guess, Alex?
I'm going to say Crispy.
There you go. I'm blanking on this one, but goal reached. Thank you, Crispy, for
Hello,
all
Crispy.
of that. Yes, not Crispy, as in Chris Bergen, Crispy, and not someone with the last name P, just Crispy. So, thank you for that. All right, here you go, folks. Breaking news. You wanted something cool? This is something cool. I have not shown this off publicly in over a decade, so you can pause it and rewind it on X and YouTube and all of that, but here is my entire list of astronauts that I have met, / cosmonauts, as you see there in no particular order. It is even color-coded, yes. So you've got all the red, you got moon travelers, moonwalkers, and we get into the shuttle era very much here. There's a cosmonaut thrown in there as well. The two Gregs at the end of the program there. Mike Collins in green went to the moon but didn't land. Got some ESA astronauts in there, so Samantha Cristoforetti. And the blue is when we get into the commercial era. So these are people that have flown on commercial vehicles. So I'm not necessarily saying astronauts at that point. That is very much the people who have flown to space per commercial rules there. So there you go. You wanted something cool? How's that for something cool? Does that meet up to the expectations that were set? And there you go. And yes, folks, yes, the top two is Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. And further down the list, as mentioned, was Mike Collins, which is the entirety of the Apollo 11 crew. Yes. There you go. And again, you can pause and go back through everything and replay it on X and YouTube to check out the full list. There you go. Anyway, thank you, everyone, for getting us to reach that goal and making me break that out publicly again. Amy also coming in, helping to reach that goal, saying bullseye twice. Crispy, a name that I don't know if we've seen much tonight, coming in with 20 gifted red team memberships, 2 separate 10 gifts here, as we take a look at a static fire going on of a stage 2 at McGregor right now. So yeah, this is, I believe, a Falcon second stage ongoing right now live at McGregor. And you can watch these tests live on McGregor Live 24/7 here at NSF.
Hopefully we see one of those in flight soon. Minutes from now.
I sure hope so.
And this is, does this have a nozzle on it then, Alex, or is this the extra stubby?
This doesn't have any nozzle extension. I mean, it has the MVAC nozzle. It's like a very, very short nozzle, regeneratively cooled nozzle. But yeah, the Navium extension nozzle, it is not installed until the second stage is at the launch site. So yeah, and this is a test site at McGregor, SpaceX's own development and test facility in Texas.
Yeah, so it is. That's what I meant by extra stubby, in that it's
I
not.
know.
It's a test version, which is really small.
I had to explain to the viewers.
Oh, I know you did. Anyways, that test is going on here. These are quite long burns. Sometimes they will go through an entire, basically, launch sequence with it, right?
Yeah, it sort of depends as well on what purpose they want to test these second stages. Sometimes they run them for the entirety of the length. Lately, they've been trying to not force them too much, and they've sort of been doing shorter tests. Like, for example, a few days ago, we had a 211-second test, which is pretty much like 3.5 minutes. So sometimes they run them for the entirety of the 6-minute burn that they go through when they go into orbit, but sometimes they just don't need that much data, and so they run them for a shorter burn. And I think this one was one of those. That was a shorter one.
Yep, and of course you see in the top left, the team over at McGregor also keeps track of how long each of them are, so you can see what fired when, and even, again, rewind back in the live stream to see them. And then to finish off the support queue here, Bideford, with a $25 super chat saying, what are the odds we are launching tonight? Anyone have an idea? If I had an idea, I'd be buying lottery tickets, not watching launches. I guess technically 50-50. It goes or it doesn't.
I mean, I think the most frustrating, but I guess technically true thing you could say was, I mean, Falcon 9 and this mission will launch when it launches. So SpaceX obviously wants to try to get it off the ground tonight, but they also wanted to yesterday and the day before and the day before. So but honestly, taking one more look back up at the skies again, the skies do look a lot more forgiving, and hopefully the radar and the winds are showing similar data to back up how my gut is currently feeling. So I think tonight has been their best chance all week. So hopefully they can go ahead and pull it off.
My gut is feeling like if this keeps delaying, I'm going to need Pepto-Bismol. But anyway, as we see there, some of the forecasts and the radars there, especially for the higher altitudes. Also, it bugs me that even Space Launch Delta 45, even this weather radar loop that we see calls it LC40. It's Slick 40. Anyway.
I mean, I think I saw some paperwork along the lines of that launch complexes now on the Space Force side are now technically Launch Complex 4041, and the actual space name in the nomenclature has been dropped. I could be wrong, but I thought I saw paperwork in there that said that they are technically now LC40, LC41, LC37, and so on and so on. I could be wrong. So somebody please fact check me if they can. But still calling it LC40 sounds wrong. You are right.
Yeah, so we need Harry Stranger in here immediately to make sure that 36 has the correct nomenclature in front of it. And Spaceboat with the $20 super chat throwing down a launch blessing. Thank you. I think we could use it at this point with this particular mission. Also, worth noting, when we were talking about Crispy, apparently, it says, fun fact, my last initial is P. So Crispy last initial is actually P. So anyway, about 21 and a half minutes to go here. By the way, Max, for people that want to go see this, what direction should they be looking for tonight's launch?
Depends on if you are north or south of the launch pad. But once the rocket is in the air, now that we are in full nighttime, it should be pretty obvious where the rocket is, considering all you have to do is just find the artificially made man-made sunrise coming up over the horizon. So the rocket is heading directly east tonight since it is off to a geostationary orbit. So the view should be similar, weather pending, whether you are north or south of the pad, also depending on how far away you are relative to the launch complex. Under clear conditions, you can see launches all the way across Florida, all the way down to even Naples, albeit it'll be very, very, very tiny on the horizon compared to what you can see here. But cloud cover seems to be one of the big pains in the behind this evening, and also it has been for the past week or so. So if you are closer, you have a much better chance of seeing it. But overall, it is heading east, so theoretically there should be an even amount of viewing whether you are north or south of the launch pad, which is nice because Falcon 9 likes to fly either northeast or southeast more often than not nowadays. So it should be even split for everybody.
And what we should also be seeing evenly right now is the T-minus 20 minute, 20-second vent. Perfect timing, Max, on extending that answer. And there we go. We can see it, which means LOX chill down is underway. So that means that RP1, Rocket Propellant 1 kerosene load is complete on the upper stage. And now they are chilling down all of the lines to anticipate the super-cooled liquid oxygen that will be loading into it next. This process takes about 4 minutes, and as a result, you'll see it getting super frosty and venty, which is why we call it the best vent, even though it's technically a chill down, and it's kind of just the residual of things getting cold in Florida's hot environment. While we're talking about the trajectory, this one is interesting in that we see it looks like a deorbit that ends up in the Pacific Ocean near Mexico. Elliot was wondering when and where can we see the deorbit burn? Because I know some missions, not this one, Europe gets quite the show from stage 2 passivating.
Yeah, definitely not this one. The deorbit burn will probably be rather shortly after the deployment, right? And by that, I guess I should probably say it might be like an hour after. That's shortly enough. That's the reentry, by the way. So the reentry happens there, south of Mexico in the Pacific Ocean, but the deorbit burn will happen probably over the Indian Ocean, because it's sort of on the other side. You lower a little bit the orbit, and then after you go all the way around, then you re-enter over the Pacific. It's sort of like, I guess, like Starship launching out of Boca Chica, right, from South Texas, and then it goes all the way around, and it actually re-enters over the Indian Ocean. So the same thing sort of happens here, where the deorbit burn is on the other side of the globe, and then it re-enters over there. So one thing is the deorbit burn. Probably not a lot of people will see that. It might actually be in complete daylight around there, so it will probably be very, very hard to see it. And then the actual reentry will be sort of in the Pacific Ocean, as we saw there. So probably not a lot of people will see that either, unless you are very close to the coast down there in Central America. So that's my complete guess. But yeah, when probably around an hour, maybe less after deployment, but it's probably going to be again over Central Indian Ocean, eastern coast of Africa, or things like that, and it's probably going to be full daylight in that area. So probably not a chance to see it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame with that. It's got to be the right orbit, the right time, the right conditions to get
Yeah.
the crazy spiral pinwheel look over Europe or wherever you're viewing from tonight. Let's see. Here was one that I was trying to ask earlier. Slick 40 was asking, SpaceX has been yeeting Falcon 9 rockets from Slick 40 for a while now. Max, do they plan to refit it for Starship?
Not Slick 40, no. That will remain a Falcon 9 launch pad for the foreseeable future, as it is currently the busiest launch complex in the world, and not to mention the busiest in SpaceX's arsenal in terms of being able to launch Falcon between the three pads they have here, or not here, I guess here in the U.S. technically, but they have two here in Florida and one at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California on the West Coast. So Slick 40 will stay with Falcon 9. The launch complex that will be split between the two for a period of time is going to be LC-39A, because obviously you have the big black fixed service structure there that has been supporting Falcon 9 crew launches for about 5 years now and has been there since the very early days of the space shuttle program in the early 1980s or late 70s when that pad was constructed. And obviously you have that gargantuan Starship launch tower right next to it. So that is the only launch complex currently set to be splitting the duties between both rockets. And then if you want to go farther south towards Slick 37, that is going to be a bespoke pad for Starship with multiple launch complexes and catch complexes as well. So at the moment, I guess TLDR, coming back to Slick 40, that will stay for Falcon 9 for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it very much seems like if they want to do more Starship, then they have other options. Of course, we know 37, we know 39. Potentially, they had looked into something over at 49. So that's always an option in the future. And we'll see what they end up doing. But for right now, again, obviously, we're waiting for that first Florida Starship launch. Hopefully soon, TM. And we'll make sure we get in the air soon as well to continue tracking the progress on Starship at the Cape. So make sure you stay tuned to all of the NSF socials as well, because once we do finally get to do that and the weather cooperates for us, I'm sure you'll see some photos dripping out onto all of the social channels. All right. About 15 minutes to go. Again, that 20-minute event has stopped, so liquid oxygen load underway on stage 2, RP1 and LOX continuing on stage 1 at this point. May see if you need to go into your records for this one, Alex, but Angry American was asking, do we know what the fairing flight record is?
Oh yeah, we actually do know about that one. So the fairing halves have actually flown more often than the boosters. The one that currently holds the record is serial number 185, and it has launched 33 times. So right now the booster record is beaten 67 with 30 times already, but the fairing that holds the record for most flights actually has flown even more times at 33. And just like beaten 67, you might remember from a few flights ago, it carried a crown as a sort of it's sort of like the king or queen, whatever you want to use, right, of the fleet. So it carries this crown and everything on top of its number. Each of the boosters have their own sort of little numbers on their sort of structure and everything painted on it. And so they also painted that crown. The fairing half that I just mentioned, serial number 185, also has that crown as well on top of its number. In the case of the fairings, those numbers are located sort of at the bottom of the fairing halves. So it's like 185, and then on top there's like a little crown painted on it. So it's really cool that it's not just the boosters, but it's also the fairing halves. For this mission, we know that at least one of them has flown for 15 times, and we think it is serial number 191. So another one of those that it has flown many times, just like the booster. This booster has flown already 22 times. It's gonna fly for a 23rd on this flight. So definitely lots and lots of reuses that they get from this hardware. I mean, the only thing that gets expended at the end of the day, is just that second stage there that you see under the fairings. So it's something that they just can pump out really quickly and keep launching pretty much 3 or 4 times a week.
It's unbelievable at the rate they're able to do that. Yeah. And to be able to keep track of the fairings, of course, they all have the little crowns on it, as you mentioned. I absolutely love that touch on them. Now, Max, we had a poll running, and we had over 1,200 people voting in the poll for what shot they want to see you attempt tonight. And somehow, 1,200 of you managed to create a 50-50 split. Normally, YouTube will be like 50 to 49% to show that one edged out just a bit over the other. Nope. Dead on 50-50 exact. So, Max, do we have an idea of what the plan is?
I think I might attempt a streak tonight. I think it might look pretty cool with the clouds that we have in the area, and the fact that it's going to a geostationary orbit. From our perspective, means it's going straight east, but also the actual arch is going to be pretty narrow. So I can get it fitted in between a full frame 24 millimeter size image. So I think I might try that tonight. I haven't gotten a streak in a while. Glass is clean. And hopefully, and honestly, it's not too humid either, so there shouldn't be any dew spots or moisture spots anywhere on the lens. So we'll try. Hopefully, not famous last words. But I think I will be attempting a streak shot tonight, and then get it edited and shown on stream while we can. Hopefully, pretty quickly, because streaks can take a bit to edit, especially if you have any dirt or loud pixels anywhere in your image.
Yeah, thanks for rubbing it in. During the commentary break, we were talking about one of my favorite shots I took that had a bad lens that wasn't fully clean. But anyway,
I wasn't trying to rub it in. I was just trying to. I was just. I was keeping it about my glass. But thank you, Sawyer.
Yeah, it's all right. Anyway, there are definitely people that take cleaner shots than I do of streak shots, and they're all available as prints on shop.nasaspaceflight.com. I mean, my favorite still is Max's right there. We were talking about this one as well during the break. The one over the communications antenna there. I absolutely love that shot. And
it is. Yeah, it's probably one of my personal favorites as well.
It's so good. And you can even see where the vapor cone was in it. And then, of course, we have all of the other amazing shots in there of Falcon and Atlas and Starship, of course. And for talking for the Cape, you see Falcon Heavy. There's booster landing shots. There's a Falcon Nebula shot. We've got a couple different flag shot options. There's one that has the fairing, and there's also a flag shot version that has a capsule. One shot by Max, one shot by me. So you could check those all out at shop.nasaspaceflight.com and get them as either a metal print or a poster for your wall. It'd be cool to see them in like college dorms now, because if these were a thing when I was in college, I would absolutely have them all over my dorm. Just saying. We are now 9 minutes and 20 seconds to go. Max, just let me know when I need to let you go, because I know you got to set all the settings for that shot as well.
You know, I do still have to plant that camera down, because I didn't really have a chance to get it aimed up between all the delays and not knowing what to do at that point. And also, I was waiting for the poll, so now might be a good time now at just T-minus 9 minutes. So think I might do that now, and I will see y'all hopefully on the other side, and hopefully a good flight. Come on, Falcon 9.
Let's go, Falcon 9, do the thing! And Max, we'll see you and talk to you afterwards. So at this point, as you mentioned, now under 9 minutes to go. Fingers crossed that the weather holds out. Alex, any update on the weather?
Yeah, weather was still a watch item as of a few minutes ago. Let's see if everything goes good with the weather. Like, it clears, they see there's a chance and things like that. Still counting down, 8 minutes, 20 seconds to go. Right now, they should be approaching the point where they start chilling down the engines on Falcon 9. They load a little bit of that liquid oxygen through the pumps to make sure that they are conditioned for flight and make sure that there's no cavities or anything like that. They get fully filled. Speaking of fully filled, there will also be wrapping up load of the kerosene tank on the first stage as well. So that'll be another one of those things that they will be ticking off as we proceed here in the countdown. But yeah, so far still counting down, still going for this. Let's see what they do. Maybe we'll get to the same sort of outcome that we were the other day, where they go to 1 minute and then, they call it a day. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yep. Earlier, we were talking about Kiko, who's one of the people that works on launches at SpaceX, with the tweet saying SpaceX yells at clouds as they were hoping for the clouds to clear. So that was one of the things they were watching as part of the weather. Throughout the day, it has not been a lightning issue, at least this time, or lightning watches or warning as we've seen the last couple of attempts. We have seen steady state wind warnings throughout the area, but we'll see if they're able to get Falcon 9 finally off the ground tonight. As you just pointed out, Alex, that engine chill now underway. This is getting exciting finally. And again, for those people just joining in as we reach the end here, I know time for this one again. Alex, can you give a brief summary of what the payload actually is tonight?
Yeah, the Nusantara Lima is a high throughput satellite for communications for Indonesia for the company called Pasifik Satelit Nusantara, and it's going to be providing over 160 gigabit per second connectivity. And so it's going to be one of these, again, 6 metric ton, really huge satellites that are going to be in geostationary orbit. Falcon 9 will be launching this into a geostationary transfer orbit, and then the satellite itself will be using its own electric thrusters to be able to position itself into that final geosynchronous orbit. Now, there's another thing as well. This satellite was originally built for another whole different purpose and a different company and a different country and everything. And it was originally going to be what was called a GSAT satellite. However, the company pulled out of that agreement, and so Boeing, the manufacturer of the satellite, decided to just sell it to another company. And so PSN, Pasifik Satelit Nusantara, just took this satellite and said, "Hey, you know what? Let's launch it. I want to use it. I'm gonna buy it for you, and then modify it a little bit here and there, and I'll use it for my own sort of business, I guess." So yeah, this was originally built for a whole different thing, and then they were using it, I guess, for this purpose of providing connectivity to Indonesia. So again, one of those things that we see often in spaceflight, that sometimes one thing that you were thinking was going to be used for one duty, one sort of thing, it ended up being used for a whole different one. So
Yep.
yeah, it's one of
And
those
this,
things, right?
and this joining a fleet of other satellites for Indonesia that have been launched,
Yep.
also helping after one of theirs was lost earlier. I mean, this was a little while back, launching on a Long March 3B that failed. So
Yep.
hopefully completing more of their network.
And they are not unfamiliar with Falcon 9 because they have already launched at least 2 other times satellites from this company on Falcon 9, including the PSN-6 satellite, also known as Nusantara Satu, and they also launched recently, just a couple of years ago, the Satria satellite as well. All 3 of them also being communication satellites. So definitely not not the first rodeo, if you will, with Falcon 9.
That is true, but Falcon 9's rodeo continues right now with strong back retract. You see the clamps going away from underneath the fairing halves up at the top there, and then the strong back leaning 1.8 degrees away from the rocket. That will throw all the way back at liftoff, but for now it's enough to just get out of the way for that initial launch blast that it will experience hopefully 3 minutes and 33 seconds from now. And again, at this point, the concern still remains the weather as the watch item for tonight. For the launch itself, as for downrange, for those wondering, this is an easterly launch because it is going to geostationary transfer orbit. So that means a shortfall of gravitas is located downrange, ready to hopefully catch the booster, or land the booster on it, I should say. And this is B1078 that you see on your screen on its 23rd, or 23 or 4. How does the dashes work? This is 23rd flight, right?
Yeah, this is a 23rd flight. The number goes up when it lands.
Yeah. And for those wondering about the fairing halves, Doug is downrange to set to pick those up. As Alex was mentioning earlier, the only part of this vehicle that is thrown away is the second stage. And at this point, stage 1 LOX load is complete. So we are getting close to finishing.
All stations verify ready for launch. FTS. FTS go. Props go. ABI.
ABI's go.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our launch coverage of the Nusantara Lima mission. I'm Chris Gebhardt with SpaceX Communications, joining you from Hawthorne, California. It's Thursday, September 11th, and you are looking at a live view of our Falcon 9 rocket awaiting its 9:56 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Nusantara Lima will be the newest satellite in Pasifik Satelit Nusantara's fleet. The geostationary communications satellite will have the largest capacity in Asia using very high throughput satellite technology. Indonesia is the world's largest archipelago, with many remote areas that are challenging to reach to provide internet. The Nusantara Lima satellite will be critical to providing essential connectivity across the country's more than 17,000 islands. We'll have more to share about today's payload in just a bit. Right now, Falcon 9 is tracking no issues, and the Nusantara Lima payload is healthy. Weather is currently a watch item, with teams and weather officers keeping an eye on some clouds in the area, as we've had to do all week for our previous launch attempts. If for some reason we do have to call a hold on today's launch, we have a backup opportunity scheduled on the range in Florida for tomorrow at 7:58 p.m. Eastern. For today's launch, the Falcon 9 team reported on console at T-minus 2 hours and 15 minutes and began their final checkout of the launch vehicle and ground systems. Final checkout of the flight termination system was performed at T-minus 1 hour 45 minutes, and the chief engineer conducted a technical readiness poll just before T-minus 1 hour. There, the Falcon 9 team completed a data review of first and second stage propellant checkouts, as well as avionics and guidance, navigation, and control. At that technical readiness poll, there were no issues, and the team completed another poll at T-minus 38 minutes to proceed into propellant load and launch. We're expecting to finish up loading propellants onto Falcon 9 at about the T-minus 2 minute mark. So while the countdown continues, let's take a moment to learn a little bit more about the payload on today's mission.
Tower, we are go for launch, over.
From Sabang to Merauke, from Miangas to Rote. Indonesia is a vast nation. More than 17,000 islands bound by the sea, separated by distance. Indonesia is not only vast, but rich in culture, heritage, and spirit. Thousands of stories, melodies, and traditions to share with the world. Yet these voices remain unheard, and these treasures unseen. In this island nation, terrestrial networks cannot always reach. Between islands, signals fade, information stops, dreams wait in silence. Yet the sky holds the answer. Satellite networks, limitless in reach, crossing seas and mountains, connecting what was once apart. Nusantara Lima, Indonesia's giant leap. With the largest satellite capacity in Southeast Asia, it brings digital services to every corner of the nation with ease. It paves the way for equal internet access, powering the digital economy and standing as a symbol of our nation's technological progress. More than that, it bridges cultural differences across archipelago and opens a window for Indonesia to share its heritage with the world. Nusantara Lima, powered by PSN, Indonesia's leading satellite company. Continuously ushering the nation into the era of digital transformation. In the mission of carrying connectivity across borders, Nusantara Lima's reach spans across the archipelago to the Philippines and Malaysia. It was born from years of dedication, combining world-class expertise, united in one grand vision. From design to reality, every bolt, every circuit, carries a story of perseverance and pride. This collaboration strengthens our sovereignty and places Indonesia shoulder to shoulder on the stage of global technology. From Los Angeles, the skybound Voyager traveled to its launch site. It awaits the moment to fly, carrying the hopes of a nation into the boundless sky. As engines ignite and the Earth falls away, Nusantara Lima lifts all our dreams, breaking the limits of time and space.
Decontamination sequence activated.
Nusantara Lima, a great leap toward equal national connectivity. From the sky to the motherland, uniting us all for generations to come.
Falcon 9 is a two-stage rocket that stands 229 feet tall and at launch produces more than 1.7 million pounds of thrust from its 9 Merlin engines. Rockets like Falcon don't use all of that power just to go straight up. Early in flight, Falcon 9 will perform what's called a gravity turn, which is a smooth pitch that tilts the rocket sideways so it can build up horizontal velocity. You may hear this call out about 10 seconds into launch as vehicle pitching downrange. A couple of minutes into flight, once the first stage completes its portion of the mission, it shuts down its engines and separates. A staged rocket like Falcon 9 sheds the first stage booster so stage 2 and the payload can keep can keep climbing faster and more efficiently. And there we just heard a call out from our launch team that we have begun thermally conditioning Falcon 9's 9 Merlin engines for ignition. Back to the mission profile. After stage separation in flight today, the first stage booster will head for a landing on our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. This particular booster is supporting its 23rd mission today. After stage separation, the second stage takes over, powered by a single Merlin vacuum engine, also known as the MVAC. And there we hear a good call out that we have finished loading RP1 kerosene onto the first stage of Falcon 9. The second stage's MVAC engine with its extended nozzle and optimized design drives maximum performance in the vacuum of space. And topping it all off, we have the payload fairing, a 17-foot wide carbon composite shell that protects the payload during the uphill trip through the atmosphere. About 3 minutes into flight, both of these payload fairing halves will separate and then parachute back to Earth. Our fairing halves on this mission have already seen multiple flights, with one half flying for the 24th time today and the other half flying for the 16th time. If recovery goes to plan, the fairings will be pulled out of the ocean and prepared to fly again. So much of what makes Falcon 9 remarkable happens in flight. Stages separating, the first stage landing itself on a drone ship in the middle of the ocean, and parachutes and fairings parachuting and fairings using their parachutes to land safely for recovery, all to fly again. And getting to space is definitely the first step in building our multiplanetary future. Back to today's mission, we continue to watch the weather closely now. T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
And that is a good call out there that the propellant tanks within Falcon 9 are being pressurized. This helps the rocket be a little more stable as we prepare to retract the transporter erector, or the TE, here in the next few minutes. The TE is the large truss structure that you see standing next to the rocket. It's hinged at the base and connected to the launch mount beneath the first stage.
Strong back retract has started.
As part of the start of strong back retract here, we will soon see the clamps around the top of the second stage begin to open. The TE will then pivot back, slowly swinging away from the rocket, and will reach its fully reclined position at about T-minus 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Now, you may also hear the TE referred to as the strong back. That's just a different name for the same structure. You can see those cradle arms have opened. The TE itself is part of the structure that rolls Falcon 9 out to the pad, raises it vertical, and then stays connected until the final seconds of the countdown. The TE, or strong back, provides fuel, power, telemetry, and command connections between the ground systems and Falcon 9. And there you see the TE pulling back just a couple of degrees to its pre-launch position. At T0, when Falcon 9 lights its engines and lifts off, the TE will perform a final throwback maneuver to help protect its systems for a rapid turnaround for the next flight off of this pad in the coming days. Right now, both stages of Falcon 9 are nearly fully loaded with about 1 million pounds of propellant, including RP1 kerosene, a rocket-grade version of kerosene, and liquid oxygen that's chilled to over...
Stage 1, lock fluid complete.
And liquid oxygen that's chilled to over 300 degrees below zero. And as we just heard there, we have wrapped up liquid oxygen loading onto Falcon 9's first stage. At this point, liquid oxygen is still being loaded into the second stage, and that should wrap up here in the next few seconds. The reason we cool the propellants on Falcon 9 is so that they are denser. And the denser the propellant, the more performance we can get out of the same amount of fuel tanks. So before any of that propellant starts flowing through the plumbing and the engines, we chill them down, which you heard at the T-minus 7 minute mark. This prevents thermal shock and boil off when the ultra-cold liquid starts moving. Coming up momentarily, we should hear a call out for the completion of liquid oxygen loading onto the second stage.
Stage 2, LOX load complete.
And with that call, Falcon 9 is fully fueled for liftoff 1 minute and 50 seconds from now. You probably also notice the white clouds venting from the rocket. That's actually condensation. As the liquid oxygen warms slightly inside of Falcon 9's tanks, some of that liquid oxygen boils off and that gas is vented out to help maintain pressures inside the tank. When the vented oxygen hits the warm,
gas closeouts.
humid Florida air, it instantly condenses into clouds. And as you heard there, we are now performing ground gas closeouts, purging all of the lines that just loaded all of that propellant into Falcon 9 to get them ready for liftoff today. Coming up in just a few seconds, we will
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And with Falcon 9 in startup, Falcon 9's computers have taken control of the count. We should hear a final go, no go for launch call from our launch director in the next few seconds.
Launch director, go for launch.
And with our final go for launch and a good weather forecast here, for the final 30 seconds, let's sit back and watch Falcon 9 take the Nusantara Lima satellite into orbit.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine full power and liftoff. Go SpaceX, go Nusantara Lima.
With chamber pressure is nominal.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
And at T plus 30 seconds and counting, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. In just a few seconds, we'll start throttling down the 9 Merlin engines in preparation for max Q, the period of maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is a critical moment during flight because the combined stresses caused by Falcon 9 accelerating through the atmosphere and the ambient static pressure are at their greatest.
Falcon 9 supersonic.
To help go from vertical to horizontal, the first stage has performed a pitch kick maneuver. This maneuver, known as the gravity turn, gimbals Falcon 9's engine just a small amount to slowly turn the first stage so that it's going from straight up to a more horizontal orientation. And as you heard, we have passed through max Q. Everything looking good on Falcon 9 about a minute and a half into the flight. Coming up shortly, we'll have 3 events that'll happen in quick succession, and we should hear
chill has started.
all of those called out by mission control, starting with main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, and then stage engine start 1. That call out you just heard means we are now thermally conditioning the second stage's MVAC engine in preparation for its ignition. That ignition will happen after stage 1 shuts down its engines and separates, after which the stage 1 booster will begin to make its way back to Earth, descending under the force of gravity until it's time to relight its engines for the entry burn. At second engine start 1, or SES 1, we will light the MVAC engine on the second stage for the first time. And we should have main engine cutoff on the first stage booster coming up here in just a few seconds.
Main engine cutoff. MVAC startup.
And there we had those 3 events in quick succession: main engine cutoff, stage separation, and the ignition of the second stage's MVAC engine. Coming up in just a few moments, we should hear a call out for payload fairing separation. The two payload fairing halves are encapsulating and protecting the Nusantara Lima payload right now, but once the stage climbs into the vacuum of space, those payload fairings are no longer needed and they will be jettisoned.
Both vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
Confirmation there that both stages are following the planned flight path today. And confirmation of payload fairing jettison, which you just saw there on your screen. Now, we will be attempting to retrieve these fairing halves once they fall back to Earth with our recovery vessel Doug, which is currently stationed downrange in the Atlantic Ocean. Coming up in just under 3 minutes, we'll have the entry burn of the first stage booster. That should last roughly 20 seconds. At the start of that entry burn, we will relight 3 of the Merlin engines on the first stage in a maneuver that's similar to pumping the brakes to slow the vehicle down as it passes back into Earth's dense lower atmosphere. The entry burn will help reduce the heat generated from friction with the atmosphere and reduce the overall aerodynamic forces acting on Falcon 9's first stage. All of these things help maintain controlled flight and also help prepare the vehicle for the landing burn. During that entry burn, Falcon 9 will be decelerating by firing its Merlin engines, but the vehicle is still moving quite fast at this point. This causes it to fly through its own engine's exhaust, also known as the rocket's plume. This deposits a layer of soot on the outside of the vehicle, which is why our flight-proven Falcon 9s look the way that they do. That soot comes from the carbon-based fuel that Falcon 9 uses, and with each flight, that soot builds up a little bit more on the outside of the vehicle. Now, just over 5 minutes into the flight, you can see the telemetry for Stage 1 there on the bottom left of your screen as it descends through 110 kilometers altitude. On the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the telemetry information for Stage 2 as it continues to accelerate onwards towards orbit. Reusability is key to lowering the cost of spaceflight, enabling more investments in critical space infrastructure. The Falcon 9 first stage supporting today's mission is performing or will perform this entry burn for the 23rd time tonight. The payload fairings are also flight proven on today's flight, with one half supporting its 16th mission and the other supporting its 11th. Coming up shortly on that entry burn, you can see our dual view here, Falcon 9's first stage on the left-hand side of your screen and Falcon 9's second stage continuing to orbit on the right.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there we can see Falcon 9 performing its 3-engine entry burn to slow itself down as it enters Earth's atmosphere. This burn should last about 23 seconds and will help prepare the vehicle for the final landing burn down onto the drone ship.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown. Both vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
And confirmation of a good entry burn and that both stages of Falcon 9 continue to follow the pre-planned trajectories today. Now, the Merlin engines on Falcon 9's first stage are optimized for sea level, and these achieve about 190,000 pounds of thrust during ascent and descent each. At liftoff, Falcon 9's first stage had a thrust greater than 5 747 airplanes at full power. Conversely, the single MVAC engine on the second stage, which has a much wider nozzle, is optimized to operate in the vacuum of space and is capable of producing 220,500 pounds of thrust in vacuum. Coming up in just a few seconds.
Stage 2 has entered terminal guidance.
Stage 2 now performing the final maneuvers to enter the desired orbit today as
Stage 1 transonic.
1 is now transonic, approaching the drone ship.
Be popping in.
The first stage booster is headed for the shortfall of Gravitas drone ship stationed in the Atlantic Ocean. And Stage 2 is preparing to shut down its engines after achieving the initial parking orbit today.
Stage 1 landing bird.
And there we
shutdown.
see just about the same time Falcon 9's first stage reigniting its center Merlin engine for the landing burn as Stage 2's MVAC engine cut off after reaching orbit.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Nominal parking orbit insertion.
And Falcon 9 has landed
Stage
on
1
the
landing
shortfall of Gravitas drone ship. Just as it was touching down, we also had confirmation that Stage 2 is in the correct orbit. So with that, we now have roughly 14 minutes of coast as the second stage moves to the point in its orbit to do its next burn, which will send the Nusantara Lima satellite into a geosynchronous transfer orbit. The start of that second burn should come at around the T+22 minute mark. We'll be back to cover that and show that and be here with you, but for now, let's enjoy some space tunes, and we'll see you back here in a few minutes. Hello and welcome back to our live coverage of the Nusantara Lima mission. We are back from our first coast phase and just in time for second engine start 2. In just a few seconds, we will have a roughly 40-second burn of the second stage's MVAC engine, which is shown on, which we will see momentarily.
MVAC startup.
And there we have good call out of the ignition of the MVAC engine. This is the second burn of the MVAC on today's flight. The first burn started around 2.5 minutes into launch and lasted for about 5.5 minutes until we reached our initial orbit, which we call a parking orbit. The burn taking place right now will place the Nusantara Lima satellite into its needed geosynchronous transfer orbit for payload deploy. Let's watch and listen in for confirmation of shutdown and a good burn.
MVAC shutdown.
Confirmation that the MVAC engine shut down as expected. For the next 7 minutes, we'll be in another coast before we reach
Nominal orbit insertion.
Deployment of the Nusantara Lima satellite. And there was confirmation that we are in the proper orbit for payload deploy. So with that, we're going to take a short break and we'll see you back here in a few minutes at about T+27 minutes. And welcome back to the Nusantara Lima mission. We're now just over 27 minutes into today's flight and coming up on deployment of the satellite into its geosynchronous transfer orbit. To recap today's mission so far, Falcon 9 lifted off at 9:56 p.m. Eastern Time from Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. About 2.5 minutes later, the first stage shut down and separated, and then headed for a successful landing on the A Shortfall of Gravitas drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean about 8.5 minutes after taking off from Pad 40. The second stage then took the Nusantara Lima satellite into its desired transfer orbit via 2 burns of its MVAC engine. We're now standing by for that geostationary communications satellite for Pasifik Satelit Nusantara, or PSN, to be deployed. Here's a little bit more about today's payload.
Indonesia is an ocean of islands, more than 17,000, where distance can stand between people and opportunity. PSN set out to change that. Nusantara Lima is PSN's next step, a high-throughput communications satellite designed to extend reliable connectivity to classrooms, clinics, small businesses, and first responders, reaching places where fiber and towers can't. Built with Boeing on the proven 702MP platform, SNL is designed to deliver more than 160 gigabits per second and dynamically direct capacity to where it's needed most, across the islands and into Southeast Asia. From geostationary orbit, SNL will complement Indonesia's fiber and mobile networks and help keep communities connected when it matters most. This is partnership in action. PSN's vision for nationwide access, enabled by technology that's built for reliability and impact.
And we're now just moments away from deployment of the Nusantara Lima satellite. Right now, Stage 2 and the satellite are over southern Africa after lifting off from Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Nusantara Lima will be the newest satellite in Pasifik Satelit Nusantara's fleet. The geostationary communications satellite will have the largest capacity in Asia using very high throughput satellite technology. Indonesia is the world's largest archipelago with many remote islands that are challenging to reach to provide internet to. The Nusantara Lima satellite will be critical in providing this essential connectivity across the island nation's 17,000 islands. You can see a good view here of the MVAC engine that brought us into the needed geosynchronous transfer orbit today. And there is a good view from a camera located on the top of Falcon 9's second stage, looking at the bottom of the Nusantara Lima satellite, which we should see deploy here in just about a minute. For the launch portion of today's mission, the Falcon 9 booster that performed the first part of the ascent was supporting its 23rd flight, while the two payload fairing halves were supporting their 16th and 11th missions respectively today. Those payload fairings will be picked up out of the Atlantic Ocean by our recovery ship Doug, and the booster, which landed on a short follow gravitas, will be brought back to Port Canaveral for refurbishment for a later mission, as will the payload fairings. We should see payload deploy in just a few seconds. And like clockwork, there we go. Nusantara Lima is flying free in its geosynchronous transfer orbit after being launched successfully by Falcon 9 today. And also getting a good view of sunrise as Falcon 9 circles the Earth after lifting off in darkness from Florida. But with confirmation of payload deploy, that will bring an end to our live launch coverage. As always, we want to thank Pasifik Satelit Nusantara for entrusting us with today's mission, as well as the Eastern Range and the Federal Aviation Administration for their support. A big thank you to all of you for joining us for today's mission. If you're interested in more launch coverage, head on over to spacex.com/launches for the most up-to-date information. When you're there, make sure to check out our new departure board as well, featuring our upcoming launches with details such as mission name, launch and landing site, and liftoff times. Also, remember to follow SpaceX on X, and we will see you next time.